So I'm just getting started on day 39. I spent almost all day yesterday in the Meadow retreat campground area thing, and it was a great place. I really liked it. Everything was clean, tidy. There was a well-stocked general store that had lots of snacks and things. Not a lot of options for backpacking dinners or breakfasts, but I made do. There was definitely plenty to do a full resupply there. The prices are what you'd expect for a mountain retreat town, or not town, like a campground. But the people there were really nice, and so I had my last 4 meals were all from the cafe. So I've had 2 breakfasts, a lunch, and a dinner. Spent a small fortune on food, but before the campground is open for the season, they let you stay in the drive-in car campground for free, and so I didn't have to pay anything last night for the lodging. So that was really nice. It's kind of a late start because breakfast started at 8. It's probably about 9 o'clock now, and I'm continuing north, headed basically towards Yosemite. So I'm about to head up onto the top of the Devil's Post pile, but I can start seeing some of the unique basalt rock formations from here. Here's another really good example of the posts, all of these columns of basalt that are all kind of broken into sort of hexagons, 6-sided ones mostly, but pretty unique. So this is a pleasant surprise that I didn't think about earlier. So this is the official detour for the PCTA, and I was doing the road walk for a little bit, which is obviously not super exciting. It's a paved road, but then I got here and I saw these detour signs. So this means I can get off the paved road at least for a little bit and get back on some trail. So that's an exciting bonus find. This is the reason why there was a detour, and this is looking back south at a bridge that's clearly out. And this is the stunning Thousand Isle Lake, very close to where the JMT and the PCT part ways for good. So here's a really nice view. I believe that's Shadow Lake. This is the Donahue Pass. That's looking north the way I'm going. That just to the right of that pond there is a watery looking trail. Yesterday I had a tiny bit of sprinkling. There's some big thunderstorms that went by, but I didn't get hit by them, but by more than a few drops. And right now there's some big water drops falling, but I'm not too worried about it because the sun's out and whatnot, so. This bird reminds me a lot of the 2 Swedish flower pullets that I just bought this spring. Shortly after Donahue Pass, you drop down a ton of elevation, a few thousand feet, into this stunning meadow that was full of bugs and condensation, but it was really pretty. And this is really the beginning of the Yosemite National Park. And that was camp last night. Very wet and condensation-y and dewy, but a very pretty spot. This is Benson Pass. This is Smedberg Lake. It's less than a mile from where I camped, and kind of a big horseshoe shape, and you could definitely get some tents on this little peninsula. Right now there's a good breeze, which would be nice for the mosquitoes once they wake up. They're not quite out yet, but a few degrees warmer, and I'm sure they will be. One other thing that I didn't mention yet is that yesterday I left the JMT. So, not to be pessimistic, and I'm very excited for all the lucky folks that actually got a permit for the JMT, but there's a very different culture because most of the folks on the JMT, it's only a 220-ish mile long trail, so it's not like they've got their hiking legs, and they're not, most of them at least, aren't doing huge days. A lot of them are doing 10-12 mile days. And one thing I did find is that there's a lot more competition for campsites when you overlap in the Sierras, because you've got folks out just enjoying that beauty for the weekend or for 5 days or so. You've got the JMT going south for the most part, and you've got the PCT exclusively at this point still going north. And what that kind of meant was that a lot of folks doing the JMT would stop for the day as early as 3 and set up, and you'd start passing tents, and because the early bird gets the worm, they're getting the choicest, nicest sites. And so you're kind of do with what's left, and there's always a little bit in the back of my mind, like, what will I find if I hike till 7:30 or even push it to 8 to try to get to a nice looking spot? Will there be 8 people set up there already? So anyway, that's a little bit of a rant, but I'm separate from them now, and I'm passing by all these beautiful campsites first thing in the morning, and I'm thinking to myself, like, yep, a couple days back in the middle of the JMT, these would all be taken. And same deal, you're walking by them in the morning, and some of the tents aren't even packed up till after 8 or 9, which is normal for most people, and maybe for you watching this video, but for a lot of thru hikers that are trying to do bigger days, you're out of camp by, I'm out of camp kind of late-ish by 6:30 most days, and there's plenty of people moving before then. So anyway, pretty lake, and longer than I meant to rant on the busyness of the trail. I am looking forward to it being less busy, even though it's never been that bad. This is Falls Creek, and it's not a lot of current, as you can see, or very deep, but it's one of the widest ones I've seen. So I was expecting it to be called a river, but it is not. It is a creek. This is looking north out of Dorothy Pass, and we're going to turn into the wind to see Dorothy Lake. So this is a significant landmark for me. I just hit the 1,000 mile mark. So that's exciting. Today's day 41, I think. So making good time, and also wrapping up the snowy big Sierras, so the rest of the trail won't be as demanding as it's been in here. But yeah, excited. It's been a long day. It's been over 30 miles already. I'm hungry. I'm gonna grab one of the next campsites that I see. Well, I thought they were bad last night, but tonight I think they're probably worse. So I'm all covered in bug goo. So they're not really biting my legs or my hands. But I only wanted to put so much of that stuff on my face, and I have a bug net. So, I'm not going to be hanging outside the tent for a long time. Got my water going right now, so yeah. It's amazing out here. It'd be more amazing without these mosquitoes. Well, here's another bridge that clearly has had some issues from last year's record snow, but is standing enough that they haven't closed it. And I'm thankful for that, because I get to keep my feet drier that much longer. So this is the area near Sonora Pass, and it's pretty much the official end of the Sierra section. At the bottom of this down at the road, which is Sonora Pass, is where Kennedy Meadows North is, not to be confused with Kennedy Meadows South. But most people can consider between the two Kennedy Meadows to be the Sierras. And so I splurged here and got myself the most expensive dinner I had on trail. And it was a great stay there. It's like a dude ranch and a campground, and it was really busy, but I really, really enjoyed myself there. It is June 30th, the morning of my 44th day on the trail. There's a pretty pond on the far side of that, over kind of where those two closer snow things are. And that's where home was for the night. Saw 2 baby deer and a young buck this morning, which is pretty cool to see. The sun's creeping up and starting to shine on that side. It's a little chilly and breezy, but it's pretty nice. It's in the higher 40s, so it's not bad. It's good walking weather. Today is another pretty full day, if I can pull it off, to get me a little bit closer to South Lake Tahoe, so I can have a slightly shorter day into South Lake Tahoe. So here's the most significant gear failure I had of the entire trip. It was this little aluminum buckle that connects my hip belt to my backpack. And so, kind of a short story about this. About a week before this, I had my hip belt for the first time ever get chewed through at night by critters, by mice, I'm assuming. And they chewed almost all the way through it, like almost completely. So I essentially had to order a new hip belt anyway because the one that was all chewed through wasn't going to work. But the perfect part about that was that since that buckle broke, I already had spoken with Superior Wilderness Designs and they were mailing me out a hip belt to replace it with already. So out of all the possible convenient ways that I could get myself a new hip belt, it overlapped with when the thing broke. So it was pretty much very fortunate timing. So this is South Lake Tahoe. It's a pretty big city that is close by to the trail. And unfortunately, I had the scariest hitch that I've ever had getting in here by a driver that was definitely under the influence of something. They had a Mexican restaurant that had my favorite non-alcoholic beer. And I stayed here at the Mellow Mountain Hostel, which is an old hotel that's been converted. Mellow Mountain Hostel in South Lake, Tahoe. I'm meeting somebody here in just a few minutes for our ride back to the trailhead on Route 50. I went to a Mexican place called the Azul that was pleasant but not wowing. Got a good breakfast at the Driftwood Cafe this morning. That was quite good. And did all my chores. This city is big enough to have a Whole Foods, so it's the only time on the trail that I've resupplied at a Whole Foods. And the food there is so healthy that I had to go to a Safeway, which is a different big chain, to get my normal staples, like pasta side things for dinner. So I'm fortunate I only need to have 2 days of food to leave here to get me to Donner Pass, where I will be meeting up with family. I only have one relative that lives out here on the West Coast, and she lives in Reno. And things have worked out that I should be able to spend a night with her and see her for once, other than just on Christmas, so that'll be nice. So after leaving South Lake Tahoe, you get to a very popular section of trail that overlaps with the PCT called the Tahoe Rim Trail, which is a different, shorter through hike a lot of people do that kind of goes around this ring. But it was very beautiful and busy. Good morning. It's Wednesday, the 3rd of July, and this is home. A particularly beautiful spot by a calm little pond. Tomorrow morning I'm meeting up with my cousin Katie, and that's in roughly 36 miles from here. So instead of getting up early and doing a huge day and pushing all day, I did the opposite. I slept in pretty late, took my time packing up, and today's going to be kind of a less push it sort of day. And then that way I'll have a very short day to do tomorrow morning to meet up with her at Donner Pass.
And so then we did the John Muir Trail, and I did it with a bag.
So I just got to experience some great trail magic. There is a former PCT hiker whose trail name is Storytime that back at Baker Pass, he was camping out there and he's cooking sausages and had chips and salsa and cookies and soda and beer. It was awesome. And the other thing that was really fun too is that years ago for the Connecticut Wilderness School, I worked with a young woman named Mary, and she's hiking the PCT this year. And we chatted a little bit online back and forth, but I saw her for the first time in South Lake Tahoe on a super busy street, and we said a quick hello, but then we bumped into each other again there, so we actually got to catch up there for real. So that made that trail magic extra special. This is Tinker Knob. And that's Anderson Peak straight ahead, the big flat looking thing. And there's a cool looking ridge walk. The trail should go down and to the left of that big block thing on the ridge rather than over it. But I plan on camping somewhere before that. Supposedly there's a decent campsite. This was one of the most memorable sunsets that I had on the trail. It was just a perfect spot with good weather. But this wraps up the section, finishing up at Donner Pass the next morning. Thanks so much for watching. I went and spent the 4th of July with my cousin Katie and her dog Blue. And I'm going to be working on part 6, which is going to pick up right here where we left off and continuing north into NorCal.